So, when you first read James's book, were you reading it as a piece of material, thinking about adapting, or was it simply you encountered the stories and they spoke to you in some way?
The way I met James was very kind of by chance and in a random kind of way, and we kind of met at a party but saw each other earlier at a deli, and then so when we started talking, I had just finished college as a photography major, and I was talking about that, and so we stayed in touch, and I sent him my photographs, and we wanted to work together in some sort of way, and he presented a few different ideas, and one of them was Palo Alto stories, and I just really connected with it because I was sort of at an age where I was reflecting on those years and trying to understand. I was able to appreciate them, where at the time they felt kind of uncomfortable. So.
The thing that is remarkable about the film is that you perfectly capture the feeling of those nights and that sort of elastic sense of time that happens when you're out and just bad decisions are kind of stumbling over each other. And but you do it in such a way that it feels captured, not structured. Can you talk about working with the young cast and then staging those party scenes and staging those evenings and how you kind of pull that mood off?
Well, I had so much fun with the young cast. I mean, I really wanted them to kind of be of age and not like, I was frustrated with movies and TV shows today because all of the actors are like 25 and there's something about being, that age, just that the way you move says a lot and is very much like a teenager that you can't kind of really recreate. But we were just like a family, and they knew their characters better than I did, and they knew what was cool and not cool, and what was that?
One of the things, there is not a lot of exposition for any of these characters. We learn through them. We learn who they are through these actions and through these moments. And I think, Emily, there's a great vulnerability to this role, and to have played
Zoe. She's not our character.
Well, I mean, but the role of Emily.
Yeah.
But in playing her, she is always very on the edge of total vulnerability in these scenes, and there's such need in the way you played it. It's a lovely role. Can you talk about when you read the material and then how you built the character and made the choices you did?
Yeah, well, when I read the script, I just loved every character because they just felt really real and dynamic, and like there was a lot that you could do with them, and especially Emily. Her story just kind of resonated with me because I felt like a lot of times people look at those girls in high school and they can just kind of pinpoint them as being just the slut. Like, that's just what they are, who they are. But, I felt like I wanted to do her justice and I wanted to tell her story and, empower. It was like empowering to play this girl because she was so vulnerable and she was searching for something that obviously she couldn't fill, and she felt the need to, do other sexual things to fill that void. So, I don't know, I just felt like it was a challenge, and it would be kind of fun to bring that vulnerability to her, and I think Gia and I really agreed on that, so.
Well, I think the way you shoot these scenes, they're very frank, they're very intimate, but there's nothing exploitative about them. You get into you really feel the connections between the characters in these moments. In terms of how you staged those things and the choices you made, were those very carefully discussed up front in terms of what you would show and not show and how you would portray this?
We were moving really fast. We were super low budget, and so really we only had time for like 3 takes. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Well, it's when you're staging this kind of scene, you have to make a choice about what you will show, what you won't show, and how you portray it. And I think you do a great job of using eyes and small details instead of...
Well, I feel like you learn so much about a character just kind of in their setting and their bedrooms or the clothes they wear. So I like those sort of details, and I guess because I had a photography background, I enjoy kind of thinking about what's in the frame and keeping the camera still and composing things and telling things and saying a lot about a person without having to actually say it.
James's character in the film, it's a really difficult relationship to portray on film because there is something predatory, but there's still this great need on his part, and you don't necessarily paint him as a villain or a bad guy or any of this, but you do portray the complexity of it. Can you talk about working with him on that role, and particularly his relationship with Emma in terms of how they work together?
Yeah, I felt like in order for me to understand all these characters, I had to kind of dig deep within myself and kind of understand why they're doing the things they're doing, and so I kind of had compassion for all of them. James is a brilliant actor, and so he really knew to just kind of act normally, and that by what he's doing alone is creepy enough, and like, he wrote the book, and so I'm such an admirer of him, and it was kind of a great luxury to have him around because he would really teach me and have that opportunity to work with such a skilled actor, and then because he would tell us the inspirations behind the characters, and then also he's a director, so he could help me at times when I got stuck. But and Emma is she's been working since she's 9, so she's a total pro, and they just had a fun kind of banter and chemistry.
One of the things that I love about the structure is it allows you to visit some of these characters just a few times and then etch them very quickly. Don Novello is really wonderful in the film, and it's a great. I don't feel like I see him often enough. So with Don, what was the experience with him? And I know he's been in your in Francis's films, and he's been part of the Coppola tradition of film. Was he someone you knew from when you were younger?
I guess he's in Godfather 3, right? Mm-hmm. I don't remember him from that because I was very young, but I remember him because I worked on my grandpa's movie Twixt, and he's in that, and I just kind of shot behind the scenes, and I hung around, and that sort of was my film school. And I just remember Don was always cracking me up because he was just saying the most random things and just going on these crazy tangents, and I thought he was hilarious. And then I obviously looked up Father Guido Sarducci, and I always saw that character as very funny. I mean, I think for James, his art teacher was a big it was a big mentor for him, and was a really kind of a turning point. But I viewed him as from the dialogue, he sounded kind of kooky, and I thought Don would be perfect, and he was so great because he just has these amazing improv riffs, and I just wanted him to go for it, and he did that improv, and I was like, this whole going down the tunnel really parallels our ending. Did you think about that at all? And I think maybe subconsciously he kind of did, but then we shot the end later, and I told Nat, okay, maybe try a take saying I'm not Bob, and it ended up being kind of a really interesting parallel.
There's just that one moment with Chris Messina, but I feel like you tell an entire story about this guy in that scene. And that's something that, without explicitly putting titles or chapters in the film, it still feels like you are telling several stories within it. Can you talk about the structuring? Did it change at all as you were cutting the film, or was that basically you knew how it worked when you wrote it?
Well, when I started this, James kind of said, pick the stories that you like, and then write them in a screenplay format. And so I did that, and then we made a test version of one of those screenplays of just with my friends and borrowing a camera and not worrying about what it looks like, but just to kind of get a feeling for it and hear the words off the page. And so in that process, I was able to kind of discover what was working and not working, and made it more of an ensemble piece and combine the characters to fit all of this for the screen. So
did you ever consider actually using the story titles or breaking it up more distinctly, or was it always that you wanted it to feel like just a single sort of...
I like that sort of structure of Shortcuts and American Graffiti and... sort of these vignettes of people's lives, and that's sort of your narrative rather than a structured plot line. But we had kind of a beginning and end for certain scenes, but I was open to like everyone improvising, and I enjoyed when they would surprise me. And that Chris Messina scene was written a little bit differently, but Chris was like, I think I should hit on him, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to tell Jack you're going to do that. So Jack was genuinely freaked out, and still to this day is freaked out. And
phenomenal energy between them.
Yeah, but he's a skilled enough actor, so he knew how to manipulate the scene to get Jack out there in like the perfect amount of time, and it was all just kind of in one frame. Not a lot of people could do that, but that was a really fun. I was just like, I couldn't watch it at the time because I was laughing too hard, but it was fun.
When you're acting opposite the young man who plays Fred in the film, his energy is so big in those scenes, and there's so much he's throwing at you. So when you have room to play and to kind of shape the scenes yourself to some degree, what was your choice to play off of that? Because he gives you a lot in those moments.
Well, I think that's kind of where a lot of the vulnerability came from, because he was so in my face that I didn't really know how to react to that. Even when I first met him, he kind of like took me under his wing, and like he was like, oh, I have all these ideas, and like I didn't really realize that people worked like that, because I had never worked on a movie like this before, and it was really interesting, our dynamic. And then but he also made me feel so comfortable and safe because the material was so terrible, and dark. So yeah, I kind of fed off his energy. I kind of like let it trump me a little bit, but at the same time, it like fed that anger at the end too. So it was fun. He was unbelievable.
We have two generations of Kilmer in the film, and Val's moments are so. They beamed in from Planet Val. They're wonderful because you get the full thing with him. How is he to work with? And in terms of, because if you were around Twixt, obviously on that he had that very close relationship with Francis. What was your relationship with him here?
I got to know Val really well on Twixt, and he's such a jokester. But I really love him, and I had wanted Jack to be in this movie, and he'd never acted before, and he was, he was perfect for the part. And when I asked Val to kind of play that thing, we wanted to make sure that this was very much Jack's project, and for him not to take away from it. But it was just a fun little small part, and I wanted to work with the great Val Kilmer, and that sort of what it would be like to direct him. And honestly, it was kind of intimidating. I don't know how to give you notes when you've been like acting since before I was born. But yeah, he was really fun, and I was trying to find ways to like prank him and surprise him. But he's too skilled. You can't surprise him. He's prepared for everything.
It's amazing that that's Jack's first film, because it's a really, I think, nuanced and delicate performance he gives in the film. What made you sure he was right for the part?
I was meeting a lot of young actors in like kind of an audition sort of setting, but then during that time I went to have dinner with Jack, and I had known Jack because we went to the same elementary school, and part of like the program there when you're in the 6th grade is you have to like mentor a younger grade, and mine just so happened to be Jack's. So I remember him when he was 4 years old in kindergarten. And at the time he was really like wild and rowdy and like knocking everything down, but then now he's like super introverted and shy and not like that. He's like a little angel. But yeah, I mean, when we went to dinner, I was just so much more captivated by like the fact that he was a real teenager and he had other interests, and he was just kind of has a natural quality about him that you want to watch him, and he's cute, and he just, and then he came in for an audition, and he was just sort of a natural, so it was just right.
I don't think I've ever seen Emma do anything like this before, and it's a really, for her, I think, a really lovely performance as well. What of hers did you see that brought her to your attention, or was there a specific thing that made you think of her for this?
I was a big fan of Emma. I'd seen movies that she was in, and I really thought she was talented. but I've known her just kind of in passing through kind of LA, and during this time, I kept running into her, and she kept kind of popping up into my head, and like in random conversations, it just always led to her. So there was some sort of thing that was telling me that this was the right person, and she was a big fan of the book and the script, and so it felt right to have someone that I could feel very supported by as a first-time director, and she's such a giving actress, and she was very helpful to Jack since she's been acting since she's 9, and she's very supportive of other females, which was a nice quality, and she's super talented. Like, she's really extroverted and funny, and then she'll just snap into her April kind of character, which is kind of amazing because she's just she's been working for so long.
Such an important part of setting the mood for a movie like this, where you're capturing these evenings, is photography, and that's your background. Can you talk about the choices you made, just in terms of how because you are shooting so quickly, and you are shooting for not a ton of money, but yet there's a very particular aesthetic that it looks like you chased in this.
I've been working with my DP, Autumn Gerald, who I worked with on some of my smaller projects, and so we have a really great working relationship where we can kind of just know, she already kind of knows what my aesthetic is, and we communicate a lot through showing each other pictures. And when I went to college, my advisor was Stephen Shore, so he is a big influence on my work, and I admire him very much. And so he kind of has, his style is like, I love his sort of color palette from the 1970s, like advertisement era, but also just kind of the way he views any like everyday kind of mundane things, but there's sort of a little bit of a narrative behind it, or there's something just sort of something that you wouldn't ordinarily look at and find it fascinating.
I want to make sure we get a chance to take a couple of questions from the audience. If you guys have questions. Yes, Rebecca.
What movies influenced you for this subject?
I love The Last Picture Show, and then obviously the John Hughes movies, and Outsiders and Rumblefish and Virgin Suicides, and even just in terms of structure, like I Vitellini and Diner, and Dazed and Confused.
I would assume it's not a foregone conclusion that you were going to go into film, that this was never anything that was... But it's around. It's obviously a part of your family's heritage and a huge part of their world. At what point did you know that film was something you wanted to pursue specifically, or was it the photography that led you into narrative?
Filmmaking felt like an extension of photography, so it just was more things that I could play with, and that was exciting to challenge myself in other fields. And it's everything I enjoy into one medium, music and set design and costumes, and I enjoy now working with actors, and I like collaborating and having it be less of a lonely experience. But honestly, James kind of presented the idea as making it a first feature film, and I don't think that was really in my mindset yet, but he kind of set the tone so that everything felt just like I was collaborating with my friends, and that there wasn't anything sort of intimidating about it, and it was just like we were working and being creative together.
I think we have time for one more. Yes, right here.
Can you talk about how you put together the music and the score for
The question was about the music and the score, the soundtrack for the film.
I worked with my cousin Robert Schwartzman, and then also I was a big fan of Devontae Hines, and I think I don't have a Twitter anymore, but I had reached out to him on Twitter just saying, like, I'm a big fan, and he had seen some of my smaller stuff, and he was like, I'm a big fan too. And so I got his email through a mutual friend, and I was like, I know this is crazy, but, like, I think I actually just asked, like, we have no money, but can I use one of your songs? And then I just started sending him the film. I'm like, well, what do you think would be good for this sort of moment? And he just started writing stuff, and it was great. And he said something really sweet, because he said that, like, he took the kids' emotions seriously, because it felt serious to them, and even though it wasn't like, maybe in hindsight it's not such a big deal, but like to kind of convey that it feels like a big deal through music and emotion and that emotion. And I wanted something that felt modern but classical at the same time.
Well, it is a lovely, empathy-filled film, and I really love the cast. I love what you did with it. Thank you so much for being here tonight, both
Thanks
of you.
for coming.
Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.